No president has ever been removed from office through impeachment, but are there lessons to learn from those who went through the process? Last week, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who was in the House during President Bill Clinton's impeachment in 1998, said those proceedings could serve as an example for President Trump.
The President Clinton defended himself, but he never stopped being president. And I think one of the reasons that he survived is that the public may not have liked what the president had done, but believed that he was still able to do his job. And as he governed during impeachment, I think that was probably the single best thing he did, quite frankly, to avoid bad outcomes. I'm hoping that will become the model here.
Joining me now is Patrick Maney. He's the author of the book, Bill Clinton, New Gilded Age President. Thank you very much for being with us, Patrick. Senator Graham says former President Clinton's leadership during impeachment should serve as a model for President Trump. What does he mean by that, and what are the chances the president will follow that advice?
Yeah, Lindsey Graham knows what he's talking about, because he was not only there, but he was a leader of the effort to impeach and remove President Clinton from office, and that effort failed. And so Graham observed what Clinton did to survive the ordeal. And he's got it right. What Clinton did was to remain above the fray. He focused almost entirely on his responsibilities as president. He was as angry at the impeachers as President Trump is, but he just didn't show it. He focused with a kind of a laser-like, discipline that he hadn't shown before on the responsibilities of his office. And he dealt with crises in the Middle East. He developed plans for shoring up Medicare and Social Security. And pretty much he left the defense to others. And as he was at his most presidential. And what happened was that the focus moved from Clinton and the charges against him, it moved to his accusers. Now, it wasn't that he was undefended. Clinton had some very powerful surrogates who defended him. And sometimes they not only defended Clinton, but they went after his accusers in ways that were unfair. But the thing is, it was they who were throwing the punches and not Clinton himself.
Well, during the Clinton impeachment, Lindsey Graham also said closed-door depositions before public hearings were, quote, a very smart thing to do. What do you think is behind Republicans attacking a process they once supported?
Well, I think they're just sort of, in some ways, grasping at straws. They are trying to discredit the impeachment hearings in any way they can. And that, one thing that strikes me about something that not only President Trump but his defenders could learn from the Clinton years is that Clinton's defenders, many of them were very critical of Clinton too. They deplored his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. They said that was just wrong, but it did not rise to the level of crimes and misdemeanors as set by the constitutional standards for impeachment and removal from office. Yet, on the other hand, you have some of President Trump's defenders have actually, they've hurt President Trump. I mean, I'm thinking of Rudy Giuliani and Mike Mulvaney. And then even this last week with a House Republicans kind of storming the hearing site, all of those things, instead of shifting focus away from Trump to his accusers, they actually focused more attention on Trump, and I think they backfired.
Well, that news conference where Mick Mulvaney fielded questions about Ukraine certainly seemed to be headline generating, to say the least. I know that you have written, Patrick, about former President Clinton's response to impeachment. It's been regarded as a disciplined approach. What differences do you see between that response in comparison to the Trump administration's response? I mean, you just touched on some of it a moment ago.
Well, Clinton was much more, to start with, was not the most disciplined person. But during impeachment, he was more disciplined than he was before or after in the impeachment controversy, and that just hasn't been the case with President Trump. I mean, and partly I think President Trump has concluded that because his surrogates have been counterproductive, he has to kind of get into the mix. And I think he would benefit, I think, from following Clinton's example, but I just don't think it's nature. I mean, he is a brawler and a street fighter, and he just has to be in the mix. I'm not sure he can remove himself from the impeachment controversy in a way that might actually be to his advantage.
So it doesn't sound like you think President Clinton's impeachment playbook could actually work for President Trump's brand of politics.
I think it could, but again, I don't think that either President Trump or his followers are quite willing to learn from it. And even with Lindsey Graham, whose words were very wise, a very good guide to it, he found himself in defending President Trump's use of the word lynching, getting the whole thing kind of focused again on Trump and not on his accusers. So even I think Lindsey Graham is not following his own advice, or he didn't certainly in that instance.
Finally, I want to highlight one other case. Former President Nixon resigned. President Nixon resigned before impeachment proceedings against him could be completed. Do you see any similarities between his administration's approach and President Trump's?
I actually think in terms of the accusations, the allegations made against the Trump administration, they fall somewhere in between. I don't think they are as serious as the allegations against President Clinton, because Clinton's were sort of a personal nature and didn't really affect his performance in office. I think the Nixon administration, though, those were and remain the most serious crimes and misdemeanors of any recent president. But I don't think that I think just because of the timetable right now, I think it's very unlikely that President Trump is going to resign or even be removed. He'll be impeached most likely, but it's unlikely that he will be removed from office. And again, just as there are lessons President Trump and his supporters can take from Clinton, I also think there are lessons that the Democrats could take from the Nixon impeachment effort, which was much sort of more sober and seemed much less sort of political than the current effort.
We'll see if lawmakers on either side of the aisle follow and, in fact, heed the wisdom gleaned from those lessons. Thank you very much for joining us, Patrick Maney. Thank you.
Thank you.